Why was gangster rap so important to suburban kids like myself when we were growing up in the late 80s and early 90s? Stick around and let's talk about it.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
What's up, everybody? It's Rad. Welcome back to the channel, back with another video. And today I wanted to talk about gangster rap and kind of how it's viewed from my perspective growing up. Not only was it awesome music, it sounded great, had great beats, but it also had a message about it that really opened up our eyes a lot in the 80s and the 90s to stuff that we really didn't see. If you grew up in the suburbs in the late 80s and early 90s, your world was pretty insulated. Your parents watched the news, but they weren't seeing the full picture, kind of like today, right? The media and politicians filtered reality, choosing what they wanted us to believe, but then something happened. That something changed how we saw the world. Gangster rap exploded onto the scene, which was raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. Groups like n.w.a, Ice-T, and Cypress Hill weren't just making music, they were reporting live from the streets, telling us what the mainstream media wouldn't. Now, I want to preface this with a group, Public Enemy. Public Enemy wasn't gangster rap, however, they were activism rap, in my opinion, and so their main album that I remember came out in 1988, and was exposed to that first. So it was far from gangster rap, but it did open my eyes to see culture in other cities. We grew up in the suburbs. When I say we had all colors and creeds, as they say. I grew up with black people. I grew up with white people. I grew up with Latinos. Being from Texas, it was mainly Latinos. So it wasn't just white suburban kids. It was a plethora of all different races back then. We all got along. We were all friends. We truly didn't see color. We all hung out. We stayed the night at each other's house and really didn't understand what racism was until I became an adult to truly understand, but also through this music. So I start out with Public Enemy being the one that first introduced us to kind of seeing how it was and a perspective from a city and a state far away from me that I didn't know anything about. So in 1988, n.w.a dropped straight out of Compton. And for the suburban kids, it was like stepping into another world. The beats were hard. The lyrics were even harder. But most importantly, it was real. It wasn't fiction. This was their life in South Central LA. And Straight Outta Compton exactly is not my favorite one from n.w.a. I actually like 100 Miles and Running. I think the beat on that one is really hard. It's a super fast beat, and I absolutely love it. But although that song came out in 1988, I technically didn't even hear n.w.a until around 1990. Funny enough, from a friend named Jake, who looks like Ricky Schroeder, but acted like the guy from Malibu's Most Wanted.
Hey, that's me. B-Rad G. Hey, yo, fool.
So if you get the picture, you know what I mean. Of course, the powers that be weren't happy. Politicians and media went on the attack. Ice-T's song Cop Killer had law enforcement and government officials losing their minds. They said it was dangerous, that it promoted violence, but Ice-T wasn't promoting anything. He was just reporting. They wanted gangster rap silenced because it made people uncomfortable. It made suburban America aware that things weren't as perfect as they seemed. But we had heard politicians talk about crime and drugs, but what we didn't hear was the reality of why things were the way they were. Gangster rap pulled back that curtain, exposed police brutality, poverty, and the gang violence, things that we were never going to see on the 6 o'clock news. It was very news to us. So we, again, depending on what city and state you grew up in, I grew up in a small city named Corpus in Texas, and then lived in a suburban or some smaller cities around there, country cities mainly. And so we just weren't exposed to that. And again, growing up with Run DMC and the old school rap, which was fun rap, Public Enemy, again, was the one that first kind of hit me to get a different take on life. And then, of course, being 16 years old, which is like the perfect age to hear n.w.a, it just absolutely blew my mind. The music was powerful, but the visuals, so even more so, MTV brought these stories to life. Suddenly, suburban kids weren't just hearing about the inner city, they're actually seeing it. You saw the police harassment, you saw the gang violence, you saw kids growing up in a world where survival was the priority. For many white suburban kids, or I would just say suburban kids in general that weren't exposed to that type of culture and lifestyle, this was a wake-up call. Gangster rap did something the media never intended. It created empathy. Kids from middle-class neighborhoods started questioning what they had been told. Why was the inner city like this? Why was there so much tension between police and the black communities? Some of these kids dug deeper. Some even got involved in activism themselves. Others just started seeing the world differently, like I did. But one thing was for sure, gangster rap changed the conversation. The legacy of the late 80s and 90s gangster rap is still alive today. It set the blueprint for artists to use music as a tool for social awareness. And without N.w.a. and Ice-T, Cypress Hill, and Public Enemy, we wouldn't have some of the artists that we have today that talk about these social issues. Gangster rap wasn't just music. It was uncensored news report American needed. And for suburban kids growing up in a bubble, it was a crash course in reality. If you were one of these kids that had their worldview flipped by gangster rap, drop a comment below. Let's talk about it. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the culture that shaped us, Gen X. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.